Okay, the next talk, actually, the next panel discussion will be about cross-border e-commerce. And the moderator is Rory Jones, correspondent from the Wall Street Journal. Give him a hand, please.
Is this on, this one? Can you hear me now, everyone? Good stuff. I hope everyone's fed and watered and ready for some conversation on e-commerce. Okay, so we're going to be looking at cross-border e-commerce today, and we've got a very distinguished panel to talk about it with you. First, I'd like to introduce to the stage Ronaldo Mashawa, the Chief Executive of Souk.com. We've also got Manu Midhu. He's Head of Ops and Planning at Infobeam. We got from Aramex, Head of E-commerce, Hassan Mikhail. And finally, from Rocket Internet MENA, we have Iyad Al-Kaza. Now, first of all, let's just try and define, I suppose, what cross-border e-commerce actually means. Hassan, you and I were just discussing that a second ago. Can you just give the group what you believe is a good definition of cross-border e-commerce and how it fits into this region?
Cross-border is a nice buzzword created in the US many years ago. It's actually anything that has to do with international trade that's cross-border.
Yeah.
That's how we look at it.
Okay.
Moving a product from A to B across different geographies and boundaries.
And Ronaldo, you've experienced crossing of borders a few times. I mean, what has been the biggest challenge for you as a business in going from running just one market to many markets and managing the e-commerce through those?
So I mean, if you look at cross-border, in our terms at least within Souk, you have goods and products that are being shipped from abroad, so international countries into the Middle East. And then we have inter-country connectivity between our markets. So kind of like almost local cross-border, because as we know, the region, while it's one region, it's multiple countries. Yeah. And you have also when we import goods from abroad. And our experience is kind of very different in each. In the first business model, you're buying from big businesses, big lots, you're importing them, mostly to the UAE, sometimes to Saudi Arabia. And that process seems to be pre-vetted out in terms of how mature it is, because the supply chain channels, you're able to kind of get good shipping rates into the region due to the large volume of airlines that fly out of the region and want to bring back goods and vice versa. And that seems to be, I think, fairly efficient when you compare global metrics to our metrics. So shipping from New York to the UAE is not too bad, in bulk especially. Now, within the region is a different story. When you're trying to tackle a market such as Saudi Arabia, you'll find it quite challenging. Clearly, the payment plays a factor. Do you ship cash on delivery or just e-paid order? If you accept only e-pay order, suddenly you're kind of narrowing your buyer base to probably 20-25% of the whole market. So that's one. Second, as you ship into Saudi, then you'll have to deal with all the reverse logistics, for example, bringing the goods back. And that's where all the customer service metrics that we are very cautious of and try to maintain break in terms of the cost, in terms of the delays, in terms of again, not offering the payment methods the buyer want, in terms of managing back the reverse logistics. Do you bring it back to a warehouse in Saudi Arabia and back out? Do you consolidate it? Do you bring it back individually? If the customer is not happy with the size, what does he do? So our model has been to just try to become as local as we can, and we see business-to-business transactions work well, B2C across borders, while they work well in certain elements. In the region, for us, we feel there's still a lot of work to be done for them to improve and become at par with what we want in terms of the domestic KPIs.
Okay, I did forget to say, we want to try and make this as interactive as possible. If people have got questions or if you want to tweet at us, you want to ask either of the guys a particular question, then please do so. Let's keep them on their toes. Iyad, I mean, Rocket Internet is expanding at such a fast rate. I sort of lose track of the amount of businesses that you launch in different parts of the world. I mean, you've come into this region and you've launched a few different brands. What has been the most difficult thing that you've encountered in this region so far?
Logistics is definitely one of the big issues in the region, and I mean, if you come here, it's an anomaly somehow. You come to this region, you have something completely different than Europe. So Europe, you have one big market, but very many different cultures, different languages, different markets, really different from a publicity perspective, from a public perspective. People watch different TV shows. People watch different movies, series, etc., and different languages, different cultures. And you have one big market, though, where you can use one logistics, where you can use one legal setting, etc., in Europe. Now you come to this region, you have, on the contrary, one culture, like one language, one public market somehow, like people watch the same NBC shows, same Arab Idol all over the region, but then very fragmented in legal, very fragmented in taxation, very fragmented in customs, etc., etc. So it's a big challenge. Yeah? And so basically here you have everything to build, one company that everybody knows from a marketing perspective, one brand name in the complete region, but then you have to fix all the other issues with logistics, etc. And that's definitely the biggest challenge of this market here. I think the question is always, when you look into it, I think, as you said before, do you want to build local businesses? Like, where do you get your supply? Do you get it locally always, or is it better that you get it from UAE and you get better prices and then you ship it for cheap? So I think this discussion is an ongoing discussion. I don't think that will stop in the next 4 or 5 years. It won't be like one place where you source all your supply. It will be always a decision, like, do I go into Egypt, then do I ship it from somewhere else, so I source it from there, in Saudi Arabia the same, and so on.
Hassan, if I just quickly go back to you then, I mean, how important are governments then in this process? I mean, in helping overcome these issues and getting over some of the bureaucry that's inherent in this region?
It's extremely important because a lot of the shipments that we move out of Saudi, the Dubai hubs, for example, which is where a lot of the big e-commerce businesses are based, there's a huge difficulty to move stuff by land, which is a fraction of the cost. So unfortunately, the customs and authorities, etc., they never anticipated something where a product can move from A to B to direct to consumer through land, because it's all geared and equipped for cargo. So we end up going through very expensive alternatives, which is airlines, and all our customers suffer from that. So customers, I mean the merchants, I'm not talking consumers right here. So it's a huge challenge, where it could have been shipped at a fraction of the cost by land from here to Saudi or to Kuwait or to Qatar. That's one of the major challenges that we have as an industry that we're always trying to address with the authorities in different markets.
And Manu, like Iyad, you're moving from one continent into one market into this market. What are the challenges that you face?
Sure. See, as a firm, Infibeam is one of the largest e-commerce companies in India, and we've just expanded our services business here. And essentially, we help retailers set up their own e-commerce stores, and we're working with some large retailers. And what we are seeing is that one is obviously organized, retail is organized quite a lot in this market, unlike India, which is fairly unorganized mom and pop stores.
Physical retail.
Physical retail. Yeah. So, and most retailers here look at regional commerce when they're looking at going online. And much like Souk and many others, they look at the whole MENA market as one market, and then they think of a strategy.
Is that wrong to look at it as one market?
Most of them that we've met are looking at the whole.
But is that wrong? Should they be looking at individual markets first?
Yeah. So first they think of it as launching in UAE, stabilizing, and then going regional. Because I think the business model makes sense when you look at the region, the size of the market, individual, price points, etc. It makes a lot more sense to be regional than local.
And so, who have you worked with since you've you've come here? What type of, is there any business, any big name that you've helped take online?
Absolutely. So we're working with Axiom Telecom. We're working with Jumbo. There are like 3 or 4 names that big names that we're working with right now.
So you're helping create their e-commerce platform
that's right.
that they can launch.
Yes.
Ronaldo, this is a question for you. You've built what is generally seen as the biggest e-commerce site in this region. But we've got the Amazon elephant in the room. Sort of, why hasn't it come here? But we'll move on to that later. But what I want to really know is, like, why haven't other big brands, other retail, physical store brands that Manu's just mentioned, gone online? Why haven't we seen Shaloub Group, a massive player in this region, go online? We've seen Landmark do it recently, but they were quite late. Why were the big names that work in this region in physical stores late to the party, or still not there?
You have to see where majority of their current business is, right? So most of them have a brick-and setup where they have quite a bit of investment in big retail shops, and they have business models that, for example, they look at revenue per square foot, and they're just metrics of how they are built. It's just really catering to the offline world. We came from a different perspective. We initially started as a marketplace, aggregating basically the medium-sized merchants and businesses, and grew our user base massively. We have also local setups while we have one brand for the region, so that allow us to have a massive merchant base across the region, and that's how we got to aggregate all the supply that is available. That from a buyer's point of view, when you look at Souk, you see everything you want on it, while it's coming from smaller merchants. And in time, our user base grew. For them, I think they looked at the needs are, and most of their sales are coming from the offline world, and now that online has taken off, most of them have online initiatives.
So is it a case of being a bit complacent? We're making so much money from our physical stores, why bother going online?
Yeah, and the cost structures of the type of facilities you need and the infrastructure you need is a bit different than what you would need if you're running a B2B retail organization or a wholesale business.
And so Manu, is it a difficult job then actually convincing some of these brands and retailers
No, I think Ronaldo and the team and a lot of other teams have done a great job of educating offline retailers the concept of online retail. And one of the reasons why they've not been online is because they've been complacent. They've been earning a lot of money from offline retail and the overall transit population that comes into Dubai, right? One another aspect I would like to touch upon is the whole culture of running an online e-commerce business is very different from running an offline store business, right? So it's the metrics that you track, the kind of people you need, the kind of technology you need, the kind of mindset you need, the long-term mindset, etc., is very different from opening and running a physical store. So we've gotten into a lot of retailers and tried to make them understand the fact that this is a different line of business. You need different people. You need a culture shift from offline to online, and that's what we've been doing for the last 1.5, 2 years.
We just had a great question on Twitter there from, I think it was Alex, saying GCC stands for Gulf Cooperation Council, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of cooperating going when it comes to e-commerce. Hassan, are taxes on these products going down? Is getting through customs getting easier, or is it? Have we moved on from sort of 10 years ago?
We still face double taxation, I believe, on products sometimes, and we go through that also again with our merchants. Goods have come in, they paid duties 4 or 5%, and it goes back into Kuwait or Saudi as another 4 or 5%, depending on the value of the product. So there's definitely no synergy whatsoever between the customs in this region, which is very unfortunate.
What's the solution for that, though?
I don't know. They have to get together and agree on this. It sounds like a quick fix, but they should. It's a no-brainer.
And how much of a problem? I was in Cairo recently, and they were talking to retailers there who were saying that the taxes on clothes coming into the country are extortionate, and almost essentially make it uncompetitive to bring them in.
It's to support the local industry and protect them. So you get that in Egypt, you get that in several of the countries in the Levant, and it's been ongoing for years.
How do you manage that, Ronnie?
So we look at the supply and understand the type of categories we work with. There are some categories that we source locally and we feel we're competitive within the retail terrain locally. And some products, when we feel even with tax, we still have a good selection and a price advantage, we import them in. I just want to comment also on the previous speaker as well, as we're seeing the big shift now with big retailers, and since, for example, Souk is a portal that aggregates multiple buyers, the skill and the DNA of how you market online and how you do the management of the buyer and their habits on the internet, we know that well because that's what we've been focusing on quite a bit, and now we see quite a bit of partnership possibilities where the big retailers such as the Landmark Groups and others are actually opening up virtual stores within our platform to allow them to access.
Who are you in discussions with on that?
We've had Jackie's, Sharaf, all these guys for a long time on our platform. So they come because that's where the buyer base is, and we're able to customize a bit the service to fit their need in terms of getting their product basically exposed to a massive buyer base.
Ultimately, though, don't they want their own?
Yeah, we always think you'll have to have omni-channel. If you feel on your own, you can. But if you really want the sales, you probably want to be with a gross merchandiser where everyone is at, because it's hard to monetize on a verse. So Axiom is in electronics, but then what's next? So either they gotta have to shift all their category base to kind of scale, or they'll probably sell a lot more supplying Souk or being on Souk, and they can maintain their own brand, their own look and feel, and all that onto our site because we do allow that marketplace model.
Let me just build on that, Ronald, which is very valid, because even like in 2014 alone, we've noticed a very interesting trend in our sector, which is logistics, where a global brand would come to us and treat us like an online distributor. So they're asking, basically, they want to give you a margin on the retail, imagine, on online sales. That's happened with 3-4 big, very global brands recently. So even that model is changing from our perspective. I mean, we've become online distributors for just logistics. So they want a one-stop solution that involves inventory management, fulfillment, last mile delivery, even payments, and also the platform. So I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to witness as it materialized in 2015. And that's changing dramatically too.
Right, okay, let's take a break for questions if we've got any. Does anyone got a question for any of our panelists here in the middle? So far, so good? Okay, we'll move on swiftly then.
There's someone there.
Okay, good. Just needed that first one.
Saved by the hand.
Hi, my name is Yazin, and my question is, have any of you, I guess, suffered with problems in terms of processing payments cross-border?
Great question.
So we use Payfort, and Payfort has local tie-ups with multiple banks within the region, so local agreement within Saudi, within Egypt, and as well as in the UAE, in Kuwait, so we're able to kind of mitigate that. In terms of the currency exposure, you can process currency from with one bank only, but then you might be losing a bit on trying to convert that money to the local currency, and for us, it'll be paying back the suppliers locally. So we feel like processing in local currency saves you about 1% or so.
Yeah, it's not working. Oh, there we go. So I'm not sure. Do you have a legal presence in every in every market that you serve, or?
Yeah, we do. In the markets we have the significant markets where we do want that bank tie-up. Yes, we do have to set up the local entity. In certain markets, such as Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, Lebanon, and so forth, where we might just ship product to, but not need a physical local setup, then we do process within the UAE, the payments.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, that does move us nicely on to payments in e-commerce. I mean, one thing that people are almost bored with now is this discussion over cash on delivery. It seems to me that the discussion has moved on from how do we get people not using cash to let's actually work with the fact that people seem to want to use cash. Do you think that we're now looking at that, and this region is just going to be seen as a slight outlier in that sense?
I mean, it's not really an outlier. If you look at Russia, Africa, China, India, they're mostly dominated COD businesses. And the reason for that is two things, right? Lack of credit card, lack of trust in the platforms yet. And those two are heavily being worked on. The banks are expanding their debit cards. For example, in Saudi Arabia, the major banks are unlocking their debit cards to be used online, as well as us, we're improving our services and offering and delivery time and return processing. One thing that I think is we see as a general trend is the baskets on credit cards are higher, and clearly that is linked to trust, where if the merchant has been tried and people are comfortable, then you see repeat purchases and bigger baskets using credit card, as well as sometimes there is a limit on how much COD you can ship with an Aramex or a courier or even internally in terms of risk, and then that product would only be bought via a credit card. So there is a bit of a shift taking place. But the number of new buyers that have come online in the last year they try you first using COD. So while the bigger buckets are growing, the number of new buyers also is growing very fast, and that's kind of keeping the average.
But it doesn't
almost
seem
at
like
81%.
the percentage is changing there. We had
No,
the pay
it's not.
for
Actually,
numbers
1%.
yesterday.
Yeah. Actually, I think we lost 1%.
Yeah.
Between 212 and 213.
Iyad, Rocket Internet has Namshi here in the region. I mean, what's been the experience with setting up Namshi and around cash on delivery?
And just on the cash on delivery discussion, I think that won't change anytime very soon. Because
Very soon?
Yeah, it won't change because it's like a big benefit for the people. So if I would have it in Germany, I would use it. Yeah, I wouldn't use credit card probably because it's easier. I don't have to care about it, etc. So we shouldn't expect that there is a big move happening anytime soon. We should rather make it more efficient to have cash on delivery. Well, I mean, you can make it very efficient. Yeah, I mean, you can make it efficient. You can make it work. You can make the payment terms very low, etc. So what we should be careful of is trying to change the customer. I think that's something which we want be able to do in the next years at least. And you can live it, you can make it profitable, etc., everything with cash on delivery. We've seen this here in this market, and we have seen this in many, many other markets around the globe. Yeah, we are like in Latin America and Russia. As mentioned, Russia is a purely cash on delivery market, and you can build businesses based on that. So
do you think essentially we got it wrong from the start? Shouldn't have been offering cash on delivery so freely. I know that JDPaydo.com, they've sort of been bold and said we're killing cash. I mean, should more people kill cash?
I think the assumption is wrong. I mean, we should deal with what the people are having here in the market already, and not like try to enforce new stuff on them. Like if you go to Germany, you pay with something called Nachname, so you get the product, you get the invoice, and then you transfer the money, which is even worse than COD. And you can't get rid of it in Germany at all because people are used to it.
But what's the point in ordering online then? I mean, there's all this process taking place, and presumably it adds cost as well to you guys. I mean, how much do you either of you, does anyone have a figure on a percentage on how much you think it adds to an average basket?
Two times the effort to deliver it.
Say that again, sorry.
It's 2 times the effort to deliver it.
2 times the effort.
1.88 to be specific.
So you're paying for people, you're paying to employ people.
Yeah, I mean, you can make it efficient. Like we did it now in UAE. So we are doing our own last mile delivery there, a bit experimenting, etc., doing our own collection. And then you can make it quite efficient. It's like it's some kind of investment that you have to do. But I think really it should be like you have to adapt to what the people want in the region and not the other way around. That's how it will work.
You know, I mean, when we launch e-commerce, it's all about innovating around the ecosystem, what's available. And key in e-commerce for me is customers see products and selection they like at good prices and they want to acquire them. Payment is one of them, and shipping. Those were 2 big challenges, and you just got to innovate around them. And this is the consumer habits. That's how they pay even offline. If you go to a regular store and compare in a gross merchandiser in the UAE versus the US, you'll find that cash is much, much higher. And you can't say, no, we will not accept cash at that
But is
store.
it going to stunt the industry, though? Essentially, there's a number of reasons why you buy online or traditionally in the Western world, one of which is speed, one of which is price, one of it inconvenience. I mean, you're losing...
Yeah,
but
but
that's
where
where
those
the repeat
ticks
buyer
but
comes,
COD
right?
adds a lot of convenience to your purchase. I mean, that's a big point. We had like in Namshi, for example, some women were telling us, please don't do too much credit cards. They don't want to pay with credit cards. And why? They said basically their husbands can see it on the bill of the credit cards that they bought so much on Namshi. In contrast, and if they pay cash, etc., it's not visible. So people, it's really a question of convenience. What you say, it's not an underdeveloped market, not at all. It's simply people are used to this, and that's really how they want to proceed with it.
So if we're okay, so let's say we're happy with cash. Cash is king, and it's here to stay. So what are payment companies doing then in this region to help the e-commerce ecosystem? So I know that you've got Pay4 clearly, but I mean, can you give us some examples of some interesting startups, interesting businesses that are helping you get around this?
So I mean, three things, right, with the payment gateways. First, there is a lot of need for decent protection and fraud protection tools. That's one of the things we face because we sell a lot of electronics, and you want to make sure that customers are protected. So that's an area where there's quite a bit of innovation, and you can kind of verify your customers and build good databases in terms of who they are and their repeat purchases, maybe not only on Souk, across multiple platforms. The second thing, there are many services that don't require delivery, for example, right? You want to buy something and maybe you get the delivery via an email or a voucher. And I think on those areas, there's quite a bit of innovative solutions in how you actually convert that cash into some kind of an e-form. And then so you're able to buy services that don't require the courier to go to you. And those are all problems that exist, and we have companies and others that are looking at them, and definitely there'll be quite a bit of innovative solution around them. The third, I think, which will be massive as we go through, is how much can you actually use the mobile in a way that maybe it solves some of this last mile delivery, address, as well as payment. And I think we see a huge opportunity in terms of that. Mobile penetration is the highest in the world, almost, at least in the GCC. So in Egypt, I mean, the number of phones we sell every month is massive, so that's also changing very fast, and they're all very low barrier cost mobile smartphones. They're not featured phone anymore. And I think around mobile, there'll be so many ideas that you can innovate to solve both the address and payments.
Manu, I mean, you're helping businesses go online at the moment. When you're having this conversation with them, I mean, what do you say? Okay, you've got to offer cash on delivery, but we're also, we're going to help you get around it.
Sure. So most businesses are looking at cash on delivery because of the fact that it is fairly popular here. There are a couple of other trends that we are seeing in the market today. One of them is offline retailers trying to use their own facilities as pickup points.
Right. Yep.
So something like, you order online and go and collect it at your nearest Carrefour, Metro, whatever, right? So that's something that everybody is talking about, looking at it, and you'll see a lot of offerings in that space come out in the next few months. That's one trend that we'll see because of the fact that there's a fairly large mall culture plus setup, existing setup that retailers have. So that's one. The second is about what Ronaldo touched upon, is the mobile POS infrastructure as well. A lot of retailers are thinking about handing mobile point of sale devices where at the customer's location the person can also swipe a credit card instead of cash. Yeah. So trying to digitize that whole collection process and make sure that it is seamless. So I think those are two interesting trends, and as Ronaldo said, as trust builds up on platforms, we'll see maybe over time COD come down slightly, as people have more trust on certain platforms.
Okay, so some research from PayPal a few months back or last year said that 10% of e-commerce in this region currently is interregional, either within each country or within the MENA region, and 90% of that
Guilty as charged.
is business going out of the region, essentially, probably to the likes of Amazon and co. So I mean, Ronaldo, first and foremost, do you agree with that split, essentially? Do you feel like that is where business is going, essentially 90% of it's going out?
I mean, if you look at maybe all products, services, travel, that could be true. If you look at products only, I think the numbers are going down faster. And clearly, right, why do customers buy from international sites is the selection. Now that we have enough user base and enough traffic and buyers and people are buying online, we see that the model is much more efficient if you're able to get that selection in bulk locally and distributed, and that's the trend that you see shifting. Also, what makes customers buy on local sites, and that's a big driver, is the whole customer experience and the reverse logistics. So maybe Aramex have shop and ship, but there's really very little return. I think Iyad said yesterday 0 return, and I don't think you can buy apparel and electronics if you get the item and you want to return it. So ultimately, the customer experience will win in terms of how domestic, but there are certain categories that are available abroad that maybe very few buyers here need them, so it doesn't make sense that you stock them locally, and people will go for international sites.
Hassan, just give us a flavour of how shop and ship's been going. I mean, we'd want it to go badly, wouldn't we, if we want it to move, we want business moving into the region? I mean...
Well, shop and ship has gone through a nice evolution point, you can say.
Do you want to just actually explain what shop and ship is?
Shop and ship is it's a leading service in the region here that allows customers/members to shop from 9 cities around the world. We just recently launched Frankfurt. It was one of the fastest growing hubs in the network. Prior to that, we've launched Hong Kong, Istanbul, Mumbai, Joburg, Shanghai. We're announcing Milano in a month or so, and hopefully Paris after that. It's all about allowing consumers to shop freely globally from anywhere, and it's not a COD product. So
if I'm an online consumer in this region, I can go and buy a Hermes bag out of a Paris boutique and then have it delivered via you guys, essentially.
Whatever we can ship legally, we normally do it. So yeah, that's the
and how's the evolution of it? So you're launching more,
it's evolved in a sense where it's now become a merchant-friendly product. So we've got about 18, 19 portals around the world who have integrated with the shop and ship checkout APIs. We've got one merchant out of Dubai, which I won't say names, his numbers are going through the roof without even putting an effort when it comes to selling internationally. We've got actually Namchi's on board too. They have a global site that's also integrated with the shop and ship platform. So if they have customers that come in, say from Libya or markets where they don't operate directly, they can check out with the shop and ship APIs. So that's how it's evolved over the last year or so. And it's very interesting to see what's going to even come out the next couple of months. I think it's going to be some massive news to be announced by hopefully August, September. That's related to shop and ship. It's not really necessarily shop and ship. Okay. So that's going to be very interesting to look at.
Iyad, people are shopping outside of this region clearly, so they're getting to know global brands, global e-commerce brands, and so I mean, you've come here and you've tried to create brands in the same form as they are elsewhere, essentially. But do you worry that if ASOS sets up shop here, and I mean, I know that they ship here already, but you've got ASOS might come here and really attack this region, Amazon might come here. I mean, as someone who's built a business here organically, do you worry that these big names will just come into the market and steal share?
If we would have been worried about Amazon, ASOS, etc., we wouldn't have entered any market in the world. So I mean, that's really what we are doing. We believe they are far too slow. They are sitting on markets which are far too big to look somewhere else. I mean, it's very simple. You talk to them, they tell you, if I invest $1 into the United States in Amazon more, it will have a much bigger return than in this area that I only see on CNN. With like wars associated and so on. So I mean, so we are not afraid. Even if they enter, we have seen this in many regions. Like China is a very good example. You had eBay entering. You had many big players entering there, and they mostly lost or withdraw or bought themselves into a local player. And the reason for that is this complexity. Yeah, I mean, there is a huge complexity in logistics, etc., which if you have built it up over years, like we have done in Namchi, like Souk has done in the region, like Aramex has done it, etc., then it's hard and really hard to go into and compete with it, etc. And on this international shipping, we are again very relaxed. I think there will be always a market for international shipping, like the people who want to buy Net-a-Porter, for example, super expensive clothes, etc., from London, etc. So there will be always a market, but there's also a local market, which is very, very big, yeah? Which we are serving with Namshi, for example, with local designs, yeah, white labels that we are producing really for the region itself. And I mean, that's what's happening all over the world. You go to China, you have your local players. You go to Germany, you have Zalando, our company, which is like today a $5 billion company. You have everywhere the local guys. ASOS is not an American company, British again, and so on.
Yesterday, if you look at Iyad Kamal, he presented the category shift, and I think in 2012 he had electronics as the number 2 category out of the 4, and in 2013 there's no electronics. And we believe we've done if you look at our selection and prices compared to Amazon with local warranty and return, I don't see why a customer, because having the choice and the trust, well, some customers might still buy abroad, but the fact that we can provide the same local even with warranty, with return, the same products, and actually much cheaper if you add the shipping on a TV, for example. It's just convenient for the customer to buy locally, and it doesn't like to do
Speaking of TVs, we've been moving a hell of a lot of TVs lately, direct from the US.
There's
all
a global
kinds of
trend.
sizes, 40-inch, 50-inch, 60-inch. And that's another trend that we've noticed this year and last year. And it takes up a lot of space in the containers, but customers are buying them left, right, and center.
Okay.
Apparently they're a lot more cheaper out in the US.
Okay, again, let's try and have some questions if anyone has any. We've got one at the front here.
Hi. So just briefly back on the COD question. You guys mentioned, that people still don't trust credit cards, and this is how customers are, and we're trying to find ways around that. So earlier this morning there was a PayPal talk, and they did an experiment with Jado Paydo, where they removed COD for 1 day. Their business was unharmed, and then they kept it off permanently, and they've actually seen an increase of business since. And they also did a study that showed that a very small percentage of respondents cited security or trust as a key issue. So another point is, a lot of people who use services like Shop and Ship, for example, use credit cards on Amazon.com, and a lot of orders come from Amazon, and they're forced to use those credit cards. So I really don't think that it's a behavioral thing or something that they're just used to. Could it be that the e-commerce businesses here are just simply afraid to remove something like this, or they're just, stuck about their old ways?
Fighting talk. You wanna get this one, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you one thing on that. Shop and Ship is still that's the elite of the people who are buying maybe online, etc., who started to buy, etc. And we think e-commerce market is still tiny from what it can be. In the Arab world, if you go to Saudi Arabia, etc. So I mean, what we want to target, what we want to get is everybody. We want to have the housewife in Saudi Arabia who has never done any online shopping so far, to get her clothes soon on Namshi, on Souk, etc. So I mean, what we really want to be is where we are currently. It's like a tiny fraction. Of where we should be in a very short time, and therefore I think we shouldn't only target those who have credit cards, but we should target everybody in Saudi Arabia, even the 50-year-old, 60-year-old housewife who is using the internet very sporadically, etc., should finally in 2 or 3 years be our customer.
I do agree with the question somewhat though as well, because I mean, if you've got a smartphone and you say you're shipping loads of them to Egypt now, and you're online, is it really a big step to go from shopping online, from having a smartphone, from being very digital savvy, to then just putting some bank details online or using a credit card? Is it really that big of a jump, or are just consumers being a bit lazy here and just enjoying the fact that you've offered them cash on delivery? Ronnie, go on. Manny,
I don't know.
you can go next.
Maybe Hassan can share how many members they have in Shop and Ship, and we can compare to the number of members we have.
Well,
and you can see that he has 10%.
let me tell you a little secret. They've spent an estimate of $400 million online last year alone with their credit cards. So that gives you a number.
So
And I
400
believe
million.
if the size of e-commerce in this region for products that you agreed on last year was 1.2 billion, so there's 400 million, again, being spent halfway across the world with credit cards. And that's not COD, yeah? So
again, like retail is
that gives
300
you-
billion. 20% of retail would be 60 billion. We do not want the 400 million pie. They can keep the 400 million pie. We want the 60 billion pie. That's my take on it. That's it.
Okay,
And I think globally, that's what e-commerce is, 18, 17, 16. If customers want to pay you with eggs, we'll take eggs. I have no problem with that, right? I mean,
Okay.
that's like wherever you are, wherever you can get paid. In Kenya, I think, right, M-Pesa is the economy, and it's SMS, and they pay by SMS.
That's
Is it efficient? Is it not
micropayments.
efficient?
You
That's
don't care how
micropayments.
you pay.
It works.
Right.
Yeah, I don't, like, I really don't care how we get
Eggs
paid.
for iPhones, essentially.
I will take iPhones if I can. I don't know, if someone else will use them, right? I'm like, there's value for everything.
Manny,
See, our India experience is also very similar to what we are talking about here. Even in India, is about 65% cash on delivery market, and one of the reasons that somebody pointed out is that the segment of buyers you are looking at who use credit cards is if you are targeting that kind of a segment, you may be fine if you remove COD, like the audience said. But if your segment is much broader, something like a souk.com or ourselves in India and so on and so forth, we are targeting everyone, like the 99% users, and many of them do not have credit cards at all.
Credit cards,
Right?
yeah. Okay.
I don't want to change the customer behavior on payment. I just want them to shop
Sure.
online and trust me that they pay me in
I mean,
ways that is the most convenient to them. And
It's
whatever
obviously
it
something
is.
you and Omar have talked about a lot.
I mean, Omar, we want him to, I mean, we definitely, if e-commerce becomes all ePay, we'd love it. But I mean, we know it's a work in progress.
I think
I
that's.
don't want to lock people out.
Yeah, I think that's a general issue. When we went to India, for example, with Jabong, everybody told us India, very hard market. You can't do it, logistics very bad, and you can't achieve your goals, etc. So what we did is we said, okay, then let's build our own logistics company if there is no good one. Yeah, and we did it. And today we are in 100 cities. With more than 2,000 or 3,000 employees in our logistics company after 2 or 3 years. I think that's really how entrepreneurs also in the region have to think about problems. Not like how I change the customer, but like how do I solve the problem for them.
Great question, though. Clearly sparked some debate. Any other questions for our panel? One at the back, top.
What's the solution to the tax, legal, logistics disparity in the region? Is that something that businesses need to work with governments to solve? Who is actually taking this forward to reach a solution?
Hassan, do you want to grab that
We
one?
did create some sort of lobby last year. Actually, was at GTEX where it was signed with Ronaldo and a few other industry players to lobby with governments and find a way around this. It is a bit slow, but
Dubai's trying to be a smart city. It's going digital. It's all about being smart. Don't they want to get on board and try and help?
No, I'm sure. I mean, out of all the countries in the region, Dubai is by far the most progressive when it comes to these kind of initiatives. That's why we're all here. So if anything will happen, it will come out of Dubai, and hopefully that will resonate across the region because other countries would want to follow.
Okay. One thing that I've not covered, but is that we don't really have any e-commerce solutions here, or there aren't any really well-known e-commerce solutions that aren't a business model that's been brought from outside this region to inside this region. Do you think that that you can create e-commerce platforms that solve an issue in this region that is unique for this region? Manny, what do you think?
No, absolutely. I think, again, because some other markets are ahead of in the evolution cycle, a lot of ideas come from outside, but we are seeing new ideas of the region also generate. Something like a click and pick, which is also taken from some European markets. But I think localizing from a language perspective, from a user experience perspective, from a merchandising perspective is what we are seeing innovations in. A completely unique model is something that we'll have to wait for a couple of years to see. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we'll see a lot in mobile because we're
Right.
ahead and there's enough user base. We already see people using Instagram and Twitter in much more creative ways than anywhere else in the world. And I think that will continue to come as a trend.
Okay. One of the things about e-commerce industry, we're at a digital summit. I'm just going to wrap up with this one last question because I'm being used along. we need some. One thing that's always discussed in the Arab world is that we need some champions, and e-commerce at this moment does seem to be the area, particularly given your recent funding round, where we're seeing the most high-profile companies. I mean, Ronnie, is there some sort of responsibility on the likes of you, the likes of Namshi, in exiting at some point and showing to the world that, okay, we can IPO, and we've created businesses in this region that are champions for the Middle East?
My only responsibility to the region is to create more jobs, to create skilled workers that can work anywhere. And out of SU, I want to see hundreds of entrepreneurs after they graduate SU launch their own businesses and create their own ecosystem. That, I think, for us is our mission: grow, innovate, as well as create talented workforce and be able to attract the best into our region, so we can teach our region and new people who join our company to grow. That, I think, is our mission, and that's all what we'll focus on for a while.
Okay, can I get a hand for our panel? That's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.